What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So later today, in about an hour, actually, later this morning, we will have the Pokemon Direct, where we should get a big blowout, about 15 minutes or so, of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I'm planning on streaming it, unless I have some issues or something, but we should be streaming it here, so you can come on by and check it out in about an hour from when this video goes up, and then I'll try to have a video up afterwards, kind of summarizing it, just in case you miss the stream. So it's pretty exciting, you know, new Pokemon stuff happening, good stuff going into E3, but several companies seem to be kind of jumping ahead of E3, and the latest one is THQ Nordic. We're going to talk a bit about that and what you can look forward to there. And then we also heard about the last Sega Genesis games that are going to that Sega Genesis Mini, and wow, two of them, one of them in particular is very surprising. In fact, they gave us 2 extras on top of the 40 we were originally promised. So we have 42. Sega's gonna make Sony look very bad, is what I'm trying to say here. As always, guys, enjoy these videos, make sure to like button. It does help out, and get subscribed as we go into E3. A lot of stuff happening. People are already popping up with all kinds of announcements and leaks, so exciting stuff. It does feel like E3 season now. In fact, we're actually gonna start things off with something to kind of keep an eye on going into Ubisoft's presentation in the next week. There's always a possibility of Splinter Cell. I will keep saying that. You never know. We did see Watch Dogs, seems to have been confirmed at this point by Ubisoft and the Watch Dogs Legion Twitter handle, but GameStop posted this up, which those are the Sam Fisher goggles, and strangely they pulled them down the next day. So they listed them one day, delisted them the next for no real reason that I could see, unless they weren't supposed to put it up yet. So a lot of us want Splinter Cell. A lot of us are hoping that Ubisoft understands that. Ubisoft says they had 3 games to announce that had not been announced yet, so that does not include Ghost Recon. We saw Watch Dogs Legion, that's one of them, so there's still 2 more. Possibly a collaboration with Nintendo on something like a Mario Rabbids 2, and then hopefully the other one is Splinter Cell, but we'll have to see. Also, if you've been looking forward to Dragon Quest XI like I have because I enjoyed it so much on the PlayStation 4, I'm looking forward to playing through it again with all the extra content and everything they're putting in there. That little 16-bit mode looks pretty cool. It's supposed to be coming out later on this year, worldwide release from what we're hearing, and it's now been rated in Australia, which tells me it is probably going to be ready. Generally, when you get things rated, it is ahead of a release date that you kind of already have figured out. Basically, the game is done to where it's able to be gone through and check to see what rating it's going to get. It's going to get a teen rating, obviously. I think most of us realize that, but that does mean that they seem to be on track for this thing. So guys, we're probably going to see it at E3, most likely Square Enix's E3 presentation, their little show they're going to do Monday night instead of Sony's show. And I have a feeling it is coming out this fall. Like they said, no delay, no nothing. This is exciting stuff, especially if you missed out on Dragon Quest XI for the PlayStation 4 or PC and you've been holding out for that Switch version for a while now. Get excited because it does look like, yes, it is coming out this fall after we've now seen a rating. Also, I'm probably about to break some hearts right now, because Rocksteady apparently is not going to be at E3, and I'm confused just like I'm sure you are right now, as we all figured this was when Rocksteady was going to show up. We keep saying that, actually. We keep pointing out events, last year's E3, you know, the Game Awards, a State of Play, or something. Like, we're always like, maybe this is where Rocksteady will finally show off what they've been working on. As you're actually seeing here, we had Sefton Hill actually mention that yeah, we're not going to be there. That's the game director and co-founder at Rocksteady Games, saying a number of you have asked, so we wanted to let you all know up front that Rocksteady Games won't be showing at E3 this year. We'll be watching as fans, but remaining in London, hard at work on our next big project. So they keep talking about working on something, but they're like never ready to show it, which, to be honest with you guys, tells me it's a next generation game. I think this is a PlayStation 5, Xbox Scarlet game, to be honest. It sounds crazy to do that and have it ready to go at launch, but WB, I mean, they must have something set up here with them, and if it's not Superman or Batman, well, hopefully it's something good enough to help sell a console even, because going from something like, you know, almost 100 million PlayStation 4s, 40 to 50 million Xbox Ones, it's a large player base to miss out on, unless they're going to release it on those systems, and then of course the next systems are backwards compatible. So hey, I don't know, maybe next E3. And guys, so the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start with the Sega Genesis Mini. They announced the next 12 games, which was interesting. We thought it was going to be 10. Nope, they tacked 2 more on there, both of which will probably surprise you. But then they also announced, well, this here. Apparently you can buy a 32X, a Sonic cartridge, and then the old Sega CD on the bottom. It appears to be a Model 1 Sega CD. For aesthetics, it doesn't actually have any real functionality other than, hey, look what my Genesis now. Let me attach these monstrosities to it. It gives it a classic look. You're not gonna be doing much else with it. I guess it looks cool for the retro game collector who wants to have it. It appears to only be available in Japan at a starting price of $37, but just things you can kind of buy and tack onto it, so that's kind of neat. Now, looking at the final 12 games that you're seeing here, we have quite a few. Now, I guess I'll start at the bottom. We have Light Crusader, Strider, Dynamite Heady, Columns, Eternal Champions. Eternal Champions, I remember playing back in the day and never getting the hang of it, so I might actually check that one out now. Road Rash 2, which is awesome, by the way. Road Rash 2 is great. Kid Chameleon, Monster World 4, that one surprised me as well. That's one of the few ones that people would always look for reproduction carts that were translated for the Genesis, because most times people would look for reproduction carts for other systems, not necessarily the Genesis. Alicia Dragoon, Virtua Fighter 2, and then we have two interesting ones. I believe it's pronounced, I'm going to say Darius, but it could be Darius, and then Tetris. Now, Darius, I believe, was a Genesis, was an arcade game that appears to have been ported to the Genesis, so it hasn't actually been released to North America or anything. But the big one that's very interesting is Tetris. Tetris might not sound like anything special, but go look this up on the Genesis. There's like 6 or 7 of these things in existence, and they pull crazy amounts of money. Some, I think, have gone near $1 million or something. It's a name your price type game. So I feel like there were like 5 people who screamed in their house when they saw this, because they just realized that maybe their Genesis game or their Tetris game on the Genesis isn't worth as much now, because now everyone can play it. Although I guess you technically could have played it through an emulator before that, but to see Sega go to these lengths to make this thing worth it makes Sony look really bad right now. I mean, this is something else for Sega. Remember, the emulation done by M2, it has a really nice design and look, right? And 42 games. Now, I'm gonna get a hold of it, we'll take it apart, we'll see just how quality it actually is from a hardware standpoint, but these are more games than the Super Nintendo Classic or the Nintendo Classic at this point, and Sega, you know what? They got something here. I'm gonna get it, like I said, check it out. Hopefully the emulation's good. If the emulation is good and it's not super, super cheap like what we've been used to with AT games, yeah, I think they have something. I think this is going to be good, and I'm excited to check it out. Like I said, AT Games or AT Games, AT Games is out of the picture now, and hopefully that means the quality's good. M2 has good emulation, so here's hoping it turns out good. I'm excited, though, especially after seeing this new list of games with Tetris and Darius and Monster World 4. Exciting stuff. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Microsoft's presentation coming up. That's Sunday, of course. We're doing a full live stream here. Had a lot of fun last year. Had a ton of viewers, a great time. We're gonna do it again this year. I believe that's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time, but I'll double check that. Here's the thing, though. There have been a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors and stuff going around. Well, Brad Sams, actually at Thurrott.com, got together stuff that he's found out through sources and everything, and it differs a little bit from what a lot of people are saying, but I've had good... From what I've seen, he's had good sources in the past, so I'd be more inclined to check out what he has to say. And it does sound like xCloud is going to be a kind of a larger focus at this presentation, which is interesting to hear. But there are going to be several games. Remember, Phil Spencer's already said 14 games will be revealed here, which is pretty neat, although it could be smaller games as well as larger games, you know, like, so it might not be all big blockbuster hits. It could be some smaller indie style games. Doesn't mean they won't be fun, but not like those big explosive wow moments necessarily for all 14 of them. And then he also talks about Halo Infinite, saying if you're a Halo fan like I am, this is going to be the presentation for you. They'll even be playing it with full gameplay from a PC. Keep that in mind with Xbox controllers, because according to him, they don't want to show it on current hardware. They want to show it on something that's more representative for next generation hardware, which they will also be showing there in some capacity. It sounds like they're going to talk a bit about how much more powerful it is in terms of compared to the Xbox One S, I guess, which, I mean, that's going to be way more powerful. But the Xbox One X, and then talk about kind of a tiered list of systems. Of course, we know about Anaconda and Lockhart. Brad Sam saying a 2 times increase and then a 4 times increase for Lockhart over the X, and then the Anaconda over the X. So it's looking like an interesting presentation overall from what we're gathering here. 2 hours long though, so exciting stuff. And I guess technically you never know what else could happen there when it comes to the Nintendo-Microsoft collaboration. There's a lot of talk about that, if you've noticed. Just a ton of people have been kind of speculating at the idea of Nintendo in some way being at Microsoft's presentation, or Microsoft somehow being at Nintendo's Direct. So it's an exciting time for E3. Even though we're missing one of the big three in Sony, it still feels like there's a lot of stuff that can happen here. Next up, let's talk about THQ Nordic, because THQ Nordic is talking at this time about several different games that they want to announce leading up to E3. In fact, they're going to start today. They put this Twitter post out here that talks about 3 games, 3 days, because the best things come in threes. Stay tuned. They have game 1 that's going to be today, June 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Game 2 is tomorrow, June 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then June 7th, we'll have game 3 at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, I'm trying to figure out which direction they're going to go with this, because remember, THQ Nordic has an obscene amount of games, like over 80 games that they still need to announce that they're currently working on right now. And remember, they went out and bought up so many IPs. They are loaded. It's going to come down to what they want to announce before E3 and then what they want to save for E3. That's the thing. What are they going to do now, and then what are they going to announce later on? Possibly on a big stage, maybe with Microsoft, who's more than happy to let all kinds of third parties show up on their stage, or even Nintendo maybe. Like I said, they might kind of work their way into one of the other two console manufacturers' presentations. But there's a few things they could do here. Darksiders Genesis appears to be their new Darksiders game. I don't know if it's one of these 3. I would love to think that Time Splitters is one of these. That'd be amazing, right? Destroy All Humans, to be honest, more than likely is one of these here. I'd love to see Kingdoms of Amalur, because they have that as well. And then everyone keeps talking about something like SpongeBob, so yeah, sure, throw SpongeBob in there. But more than likely, these could be 2 smaller games and then 1 larger one. So Darksiders Genesis could be technically announced before E3 and then saying, hey, gameplay to come. Smart way, by the way, to get people looking at you during E3 is to kind of announce ahead of time so that you don't get kind of lost in the shuffle. But I don't think these are going to be the only 3 games, by the way, that THQ Nordic is going to show us at E3. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the NES games that are releasing this month on the Nintendo Switch Online application, where, of course, new NES games are added every single month. 3 new games are going to be added, and I have to tell you, one of them is pretty cool, but the others are, I don't know, it feels like we're not getting anything like wow, for this Nintendo application. And maybe it's because they know they need to deliver every single month, so down months will happen. But I don't know, it feels like, maybe it's just me. You'll have to let me know down below in the comments. Do you feel like you have to open the NES app every month now to play the games or even check them out? Because I just don't see a lot of talk about these anymore. But here we go. Let's talk about the 3 that have been announced. The one that I actually saw was, okay, it's cool, is Double Dragon 2. You can play it online then, right? It has a multiplayer feature and everything. That's fun. Double Dragon 1 does not, of course, but Double Dragon 2 does. However, we've had River City Ransom and other beat-em-ups already. So that one, while it's neat, isn't still, I just feel like, hard-hitting. Even if they had just done Earthbound Beginnings, right? They could have at least thrown it in there into the name. Otherwise, though, we have 2 other ones, Volleyball being one of them, and then the other one is City Connection. Now, these are releasing June 12th. You'll be able to go in, and then, of course, there is always the chance that there could be special edition games, SP, you know what I mean? Like where we go in and they change things up. Yes, they're basically ROM hacks or save states, but they're pretty neat to do. I know Metroid will kind of throw you at the end of the game, and then you can kind of go back through with these really powerful, weapons and everything. That's always fun. And again, I think those are more things where you'll kind of turn it on, play it, it's kind of neat, and then you kind of move on. But that's kind of what just in general, the NES application is feeling like. I think people are getting a little impatient. I think a lot of people want Super Nintendo games because most of us believe that that's happening. And while Super Nintendo games could also get stale after some time, I think the library is deeper, and I think we had to a point where the games were a little deeper and better in 16-bit to where they could offer a bit more fun and replayability. So I'm hoping Super Nintendo games are next. I'm hoping they're at E3. If not, we might have to wait till the 1-year subscription is up, and then they have to just decide how they can get people to stay. Oh, let's go grab Super Nintendo games. And we'll finish up today with the comment of the day from yesterday. This one's actually from Gilliver saying, I can't see these unfinished live service games working much anymore. After Anthem, I feel like it was a big wake-up call for the ignorant. There's only so many times you can burn a community before they fade away, and that's actually something I'm starting to notice as well. I think a lot of people are catching on to the live service stuff. I think it worked really well originally, right, when they figured this out. Remember when Destiny came out? Things sold like crazy, obscene amounts of money were made, and people kind of noticed that it was lacking in content, but people stuck around. They even bought the second Destiny, right? Like Destiny 2 did pretty well also, and maybe that's because people were hoping that the content would show up eventually and it would get better and better. And then they kept releasing DLC after DLC after DLC, and well, you get the picture. I just think after we saw Fallout 76 and then Anthem back to back, I think people are starting to realize, wait a minute, they're not giving us the full game. This thing's just not ready. How is it not ready? It's been so long. So I think you're right. I think live services will eventually kind of wean their way out just because people don't want them anymore. Now, I don't think that's the case for everyone, but I think they have to start releasing better experiences day one rather than do the, oh, it's not what it is at release, it's what it becomes. I don't think that's a good philosophy for these AAA developers to even be following, because they're still asking for $60 up front. If these were free-to-play games they're releasing, well, they're free, and then they're looking to make money over time with microtransactions, bit more excusable there, but not at the full $60. Ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the THQ Nordic games. What do you want to see from them? You can even go check out their IPs that they own, because they own a lot, and see if you can pick something out from a series you would like to see. Again, holding out hope for Time Splitters, but we'll see about that one. Also, what do you think about the Genesis Mini? 42 games, and they look like they're pretty well thought out stuff that a lot of people haven't even played because it's never been released in the States, or you're not someone who owns one of 6 copies of Tetris. But exciting stuff there. Let me know what you think about that down below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.